Good. So welcome to the PCRAC meeting. It's the greatest acronym ever. I'm Melissa Colesman, and I'm one of the co-chairs of this committee, and I'm the only one here for, as a co-chair for today. So, well, actually, it just means that Christina, I rely on her much more than usual. But well, thank you all for being here today. This is an amazing room. The technology is pretty impressive. And the way the microphones work is if you need to speak, you push the button that says push, but only one microphone works at a time. So kind of be aware of that, but actually kind of nice. Maybe we should institute these at dinner tables around Colorado. Maybe that would help. So we'll start off today. Everyone should have an agenda. There's also other meeting materials on the side. Please make sure you've picked those up. A few housekeeping details. Restrooms are out by the elevators, so if you need to use that, go ahead and do so. And just a reminder on the microphones, when you're finished speaking, make sure you push off, because otherwise no one else will be able to speak. We do have a number of folks participating virtually as well. And so for those people who are participating virtually, Christina, is there anything specific you want to make sure that they are aware of?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is Christina. Just wanted to make that note to make sure you do use the microphone. That's how the people on the phone will be able to hear us. And we do have such a large room, so the microphones will help us all be able to connect and to hear each other. We will have a small group activity later, and Amanda will be facilitating the small group discussion and bringing that back to share with us. Also, for folks on the phone, you can ask questions and chats. We've tried to unmute everyone and ask that you mute yourself, but you should be able to speak too if you have questions and want to bring them up in the group.
Okay, so we will start off with introductions, and I think we'll start with Noemi. So please just state your name and what organization you're representing.
Good morning, everyone. Noemi Aguilar with CDE, the Office of Migrant Education.
Laura Knudsen with Parent Possible. Heather Triton with Parent Possible.
Heather Hannah with the Early Childhood Council Leadership and Parent.
My name is Joyce Johnson with the Colorado State Library.
Good morning, Eileen Auer Bennett, Assuring Better Child Health and Development, ABCD. Good morning, Angie Villanos with the Preschool through Third Grade Office at CDE.
Hello, this is Sandra Randall with America, Colorado.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jennifer O'Brien from Early Childhood Workforce Development at CDE.
I'm going to introduce Amanda Pelletier with Early Childhood Leadership.
So Echo Hawk with the Denver
Indian Office of Early Childhood.
Carrie Germeroff, Marzano Research.
Help You Child Care Colorado.
Emily Bustos, Denver's Early Childhood Council.
Lindsay Bagetta, Small Business Majority.
Hunter Rayleigh, Small Business Majority.
Angela Schroeder, Jefferson County Public Schools.
Naomi Stenson, Calden Adult Care Food Program with CDPHE.
Ida Rhodes with Catholic Charities, the Diocese of Pueblo.
Nakia Collins, Office of Early Childhood.
Great. So with the folks that are online and participating by phone, we know it can be a little awkward because you're all going to start speaking at the same time, and then you're all going to be silent at the same time. So what I think we'll do is, because we have a log of participants who are online, we'll just go ahead and read those so that it's clear who's there without causing confusion. And also, please make sure you are muting your phone lines because we can hear some background noise.
And then having to make sure you have everything and uploading it might be a little, it's hard to confuse, so the more you can do it as you go, the better.
So while we're working through a few logistics here, what I'll do is I'll just kind of quickly run through our agenda for today. We're going to spend obviously a lot of our time over these next months talking about the preschool development grant. So that's going to be kind of front and center on our work for this committee. We're going to have time for some reflections on the meeting that we had in February. Christina's going to lead us through a small group activity to help us be thinking about the work that we do and how that aligns with the preschool development grant. We'll get an update on that work. We're also going to get an update on the early learning and development guidelines and some alignment work that's going to be happening there. We'll also have an opportunity for legislative updates as well as some working group updates. So I think, are we ready to kind of have a list of folks from who are participating remotely?
Okay, I'm going to read the list of people participating remotely. Ann Bruce, Bill Jager, Cassandra O'Neill, Corey West. Sorry, I just jumped. Dawn Alexander, Dawn Kloiko, Deepika, I can't pronounce your last name, I'm going to slaughter it. It's with a K, Kasami. Denise Fletcher, Dawn Poe, Erica Newton, Jackie Florendo, Jennifer Stridon, Judy Williams, Kate Jonkowski, Carrie Renrick, Kimberly Rhino, Linda Meredith, Lucille Echo Hawk, Mariah Reed, Maya Phil Diaz, Fuang Kwan, Stacy Petty, Terry came in. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll, and I think that's it. Sorry if I pronounced.
Thank you. And we just had a couple more people join us in the room. So if you haven't had a chance to introduce yourself, could you please hit the push button on your microphone and introduce yourself and your organization?
Hi, so I'm Shannon Beckman, and I'm here representing the Colorado Association of Infant Mental Health.
Good morning, Karen Bowden with the Office of Early Childhood.
Well, great. So the first item on our agenda after introductions is to approve our meeting minutes from February 8th, 2019. You should have received a copy of those, and they're on the side table. And members of the committee, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes. Second? Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? All right, one task done. Always feels good. You got to celebrate the small victories. So, so we're going to turn over to Christina to take us through the February meeting reflections.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for your flexibility in moving to a new space, and for folks for joining us on the phone. We are in an awesome new space and still trying to figure out the technology, but it's really cool. So make sure you say thank you on your way out to letting us use the space, because we really appreciate it. I just wanted to take a few minutes to sort of catch us up from the last meeting. So we had a meeting that was by webinar only on February 8th. And we had Lindsay and Heather really walk us through the entirety of the preschool development grant. And what are the activities, what are the plans, what are the contracts that are in the works, and what was really starting to be expected of this group and moving forward. We also sent out a worksheet at the end where we asked you what was most interesting to you, what didn't you understand, what questions did you have, and where do we want to dig deeper. So I wanted to address a few of those and sort of give you some notes and some resources, and then sort of set us up for what our work will cover today. So first, thank you to everybody who did fill out that worksheet. It gave us a really good sense of what was clear and what wasn't clear. That came out very clearly, what wasn't clear, and really helped us think about what should we do at this meeting that people really wanted to dig into. One question that did come up multiple times was, who's the membership for this group? Am I a member? I used to be. I think I was. What does that look like? So just for clarification for everyone, with the sort of restart that the Commission gave the Program Quality and Alignment Subcommittee a little bit ago, we had that new charge that we had worked on as a group. It outlined some members that the Commission felt were required or really important voices to have at the table. So we had sort of one list of subject matter experts that we wanted to have here. With the introduction of the Preschool Development Grant, that brought a whole new set of partners and people that we should be working with and connecting with and thinking about how our systems connect with. And so we sort of merged those buckets of subject matters experts and subject expertise, I guess. And then our co-chairs and myself reached out to people to help represent each of those categories. So what I did is I sent around a membership list on Monday or Tuesday, I think, when I sent the agenda out. These are also posted on our website. So take a look at that. If you're a member, you should have been contacted, and we asked if you wanted to be a member before we put you on the list, hopefully. And so if you have questions about that or you want to understand more or dig into that, please do let me know. But that is the official membership list for PQA, thinking about this year with guidance on the Preschool Development Grant. So again, let me know if you have questions on that, but check out that list. Another question that came up was around acronyms. And so you will see we're going to do our best today to not use acronyms. I think if folks do hear acronyms that you don't know, please raise your hand. Please, I don't know if we want to like make an A or something just to remind our presenters. But there's a lot of folks that are new to this committee. And a lot of people that are, maybe our typical partners and not so typical partners. So we're thrilled that everyone's here and coming together. And let's just all really try to not use the acronyms that we're all so steeped in. And then the last thing I wanted to note around the questions, there were some questions that we received about, what does this word mean in the context of PDG? Preschool Development Grant. What does provider mean? What does mixed delivery system mean? What are we talking about when we're saying some of these big words? So Lindsay and Heather are working on a Q&A document. We hope that as we go through today, you all will continue to share those questions with us. We have a board over there and some sticky notes on your table. So as you're going through, write questions, put them up there. For folks online, please submit questions either through the question box there, or you can always email me afterwards. And then we'll share that sort of larger Q&A document with all of you, and we'll also post that online on the PDG website later. Another question that came up a few times was, what are ELDGs and what are the guidelines and why are we changing them? And so we're really excited to have Carrie here today. She'll walk us through what that activity means and how this group can get involved and what our role with that will be moving forward. And then the last thing I wanted to note here is that we will have another worksheet. This will probably be more in the format of a form at the end of today that Lindsay will talk a little bit about some information that we're hoping to gather from all of you and be able to share back. And so again, think about questions you have, think about what doesn't make sense, and continue to share that with us because it's really helpful. So I will jump us into the next activity, which is a small group activity. But first, just wanted to see if there are any questions Anything folks want to say? Any follow-up from the last meeting? Anything at this point? On the phone, if anyone has anything, if you want to chat it in there, that'd be great. All right, we waited the full 7 seconds, which I understand is the right amount of time. So again, please raise your hand, ask questions as we go through. This is really meant to be interactive, and you know, we want to hear feedback. We want to know how things are going and what you think and how we can all come together and really do a good job on this preschool development grant. So thank you for being here. So I'll move us into the small group activity. There are a lot of new voices, a lot of new faces here. And so we wanted to take a little time and break apart into small groups. And so what I'll ask is for folks in the room, groups of maybe 6 or 7 or 8 people. We're going to have you sort of just break off into the room area, or there's 2 smaller rooms that are located off the end of each end of the room here. And you're going to get in your small group. And what we would like you to do is just introduce yourself and then share with your group how the work that you do every day aligns with the preschool development grant. And I want to be thoughtful about this in the sense that we do have parent representatives here too, so their job might not be within this field, but I want you all to be thinking about personally and professionally. What is it that you do that connects with helping kids get ready for kindergarten and those goals that are outlined in the PDG? If you need a cheater or a refresher, you have a PDG one-pager in front of you, so I would encourage you to grab that. And just share it with your group. What is it that you do that aligns with this work? I will ask for everybody to record as you're going through, folks' names, and then just real short what it is. And then we'll go around at the end and ask every group thing that they found that was the most surprising or most interesting thing that they found within their group. And for folks online, Amanda's going to facilitate. We'll see if we can unmute folks or do the chat, but then we'll have you all share out as well. So any questions? All right, so if you can break off into around the room or those 2 rooms, groups of 6 or 7 or 8, and I will bring around some chart paper for everybody.
Hey.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. We're going to have a few moments now to do some reporting out. In any situation like this, we cannot create the entire conversation, although it would be incredibly helpful to hear everything that happened. So what we want to do is make sure we're sticking with the report out prompt, which is, was there something that surprised you in your group? So let's start. Karen looks like she's ready to go.
Ready to go, thank you. And I'm not sure if it's surprise as it is more kind of excitement, is really just this whole where things connect with the needs assessment, strategic plan, parent choice and knowledge, are really getting those parent voices to the table where we all kind of feel like we're doing the right thing for families and children, and yet we want to be really, really sure that we've got, you know, what are you really looking for? Are these quality initiatives really important to you? If so, why? If so, why not? And how we can get more to a parent-driven market system that really is meeting the needs of families along with the education.
Thank you. Great. Who'd like to go next? Should we just keep going around the table? Next group.
So I think our common theme, again, I don't think we had surprises, but we learned a lot about each other, but it really came down to access is what we all had in common, and whether that be access to quality in early learning, whether that be formal or not formal, but also access into the healthcare system. So.
Thank you. Let's keep going around the table, and Emily's group. I didn't nominate you personally, Emily. I'm just, yes.
I mean, I think echoing a little bit what Karen was saying, I mean, one of the things that kind of, again, didn't necessarily surprise us was that there really are just a vast, diverse set of resources that are available. We had people representing health, small business support, councils, you know, and screenings, all in just one, and research, all in one group. So, I mean, I think that was just really reinforcing to say that there's just a lot of things that can be aligned and enhanced with this funding opportunity. And so we talked a little bit about how it's really to sustain and expand existing activity and not to just, you know, kind of pilot things, which we think is actually really needed at this time.
Thank you. Looking the next group down, so I don't know who in that group just got voluntold.
That was me. So I think we found what something was in common was kind of a theme of home to school, and what everybody kind of found a little bit surprising is that in Pueblo we have a strong Parents as Teachers program, but we also started several years ago a Parents as Teachers supporting care providers. And so Catholic Charities provides Parents as Teachers in family homes, and Children First, which is a core agency, provides the Parents as Teachers supporting care providers in child care centers. And so we kind of did that a lot of years ago in alignment with trying to make sure that we were getting consistency and the same messaging for parents, whether they're getting it through their home visitor or their child care. And so it was kind of a lot, it aligns well with the preschool development grant. So.
Thank you very much. Did we hear from each group that was here in the room? I think so. So I believe that we're going to have a summary of the online discussion.
Hi, I'm just going to find some online that I can share. Give me 1 second to scroll through. We got a lot of people who wrote in. Okay, we have Denise Fletcher who wrote, as a private provider, it is important that a mixed delivery be offered to families. Not every child is right for every program. Parents need to be able to make choices that are best for their children. Okay, we have somebody who wrote, I've agreed to serve on the subcommittee because Native American parents and young children are probably underrepresented in the preschool programs in the state. I am the ex-director of the Denver Indian Family Resource Center. We currently do have some work with young Native children in foster care and plan to do much more preventive work in the future. We can get a few more in here. Bear with me 1 second, we got so many entries. This one I wanted to share and I can't find it. Okay, we have another that says, hi everyone, my personal interest is that I have 2 children who I fostered and then adopt, who had early childhood trauma. My son did not know the alphabet at age 6, and my daughter did not know her colors at age 4. They were both had insecure attachment. They made huge progress, but still suffer from the lack of early childhood safety and nurturing. I now have an 18-month-old grandson who is benefiting from
early childhood through CCAP support. On the professional side, I am a creative director who does e-learning, video, and communications around early childhood development. I can find one more that I'm going to share here up at the top. Okay, so we have a licensed infant and toddler home provider and a home provider advocate. I work with the families in my care to ensure that children learn and develop the social emotional skills they need. I also help families with many resources that can help them. And I just picked a few, but there was many more. So thank you so much for sharing, and I will let Melissa take it over.
Thank you. So while we could only hear from just a few folks throughout this process, what's really nice is we have your posters, we have all of the comments that were submitted online, so that all of that kind of come part of the conversation. So I do think that there's a large consensus that this preschool development grant really provides us with some great opportunities in Colorado to better meet the needs of parents, for families, and young children. So I think right now is we're going to turn over to get an update from Lindsay and Heather. Is Heather not here?
No, Heather got called into another meeting. Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay Dorneman. I just was telling Melissa here, Heather got called into another meeting this morning, so you get me. But I did want to provide an update on where we're at with implementation of the preschool development grant. We're kind of in that hurry up and wait phase where there's a lot going on, but other things need to happen before we can get back to work. So this past month, we focused a lot on building our infrastructure, which means hiring staff. So you probably saw some announcements come out from our office that we are employing 7 individuals that are tied to the grant, which includes an early childhood mental health position, some project managers focusing on transitions and program access, as well as just some physical support for the office. 2 of those positions are still posted. I believe it's the early childhood workforce coordinator position and the fiscal and contract specialist. So if you know folks, direct them to the Colorado Shines webpage or Colorado Shines Brighter webpage for those applications. We're also securing our vendors. So as some of you may know, the state has a pretty intense process for competitive recruitment of vendors. And so we're in the midst of posting those requests for proposals right now. Today we have one closing tied to strategic planning. The last RFP we posted will close on April 5th. What that means is that a number of our vendors won't be on board until about May. Especially the strategic planning vendor, the needs assessment vendor, and the vendor that will be responsible for evaluation planning. That kind of puts us in a weird spot because it's really hard for us to begin some of this work without having those partners on board, but we are looking at ways that we can set up those vendors for success and allow them to hit the ground running. And so I'll get to that in just a second. We're still waiting on our notice of award from the federal government. So we have the money, our budget's been approved, we just don't have the paperwork. So that's creating a few delays in terms of contracting or being able to expend those funds. We don't know how that will ultimately impact the timeline of the grant. Currently, we're expecting at least a 1-month no-cost extension, allowing us to extend the work into January of next year, whereas the original grant was supposed to end in December. We don't know if we'll get an additional extension or what the expectations will be following this additional delay. We recently had a technical assistance call with our federal partners, and they really reiterated that the purpose of this grant is to engage in some in-depth planning. And so they really want states to focus deeply on that needs assessment and strategic plan and have committees that are broadly representing our stakeholders to inform that work. After hearing that, Heather and I kind of smiled at each other and said, we feel like we're on track, that we're meeting those expectations through PQA. So we're really excited to see everybody at the table again today and joining us online because you are an integral part of this work. So in addition to that, we do feel that Colorado's on track. We keep having some anxiety attacks internally that we're moving so slow, knowing we only have a year for this work. But given what we're hearing from our partners and from other states, we really do feel like we're on track to execute and implement this grant as the government or federal government has intended. We're also learning a lot about how they are essentially building the plane as they fly it. So some of the expectations that were outlined in the funding announcement may change, and so as we learn those, we'll share those out. But that could include things such as being able to spend money on quality improvement activities without first submitting a strategic plan. So they're really kind of evolving. We're going to remain flexible and agile to respond to that. And again, we'll keep you updated as we learn more. So where do you fit in? I really appreciate the work that you did earlier. It's really affirming to know that our stakeholders, that we're aligning with our stakeholders' expectations and vision for this work, and we're doing our best to continue to do that. One way we want to do that is to start collecting strategic plans and needs assessments that exist out in the community. So the next project that we are assigning to this committee is we'll be sending out 2 forms. One will focus on strategic planning and one will focus on needs assessment. And what those forms do is they allow you to upload documents that currently exist or that you and your organizations are working from. And they provide a few questions that kind of frame it. So for example, under strategic planning, kind of looking at the time frame of your strategic plan, what are some successes in that plan, what are some gaps you may have identified, and what are the barriers you're facing to implementing that plan, because we want to review those plans and then align whatever we're developing through this group with those so that we're not creating something new, we're not putting new expectations out there, but we're really kind of enhancing and getting everybody moving in that same direction. Similarly, with a needs assessment, we know that a lot of groups either have, are in the process of, or are shortly going to begin some data collection efforts. And so in the effort of reducing duplication and building on what exists, which is something that we've been asked to do, we also want to collect any existing needs assessments or reports that you may have, or information about what you may be doing in the future so that we can align those efforts. So that's a second form. There's some guiding questions around that. I believe Christina and Amanda will send those out. We also plan to share those out through the Colorado Shines Brighter distribution list to get a little wider reach. But feel free to share those forms. We plan to keep them open until April 15th. That'll give us about 2 weeks as an office to look through, organize them so that when our vendors come on board in May, we can kind of hand that over and say, this is what we've got. Now tell us what to do. Are there any questions about that work or the grant in general? Yeah, so we, 2 positions already closed, or 3, I guess, closed. So we had our first round of interviews for the alignment and coordination managers, one which will focus on contract for slots and aligning funding streams, and one which will focus on transitions. We hope to have a second round of interviews next week and get those positions on board within the next 3 weeks or so. And then the other position that closed is an admin assistant. So we'll start interviews for that position next week, which will be a huge support to Amanda. So she's patiently waiting. And then the early childhood mental health lead specialist position closed
I believe on the 5th, and so those interviews should be starting within probably about a week to 10 days, depending on how many candidates applied for that. So the first folks will start coming on board hopefully in about 3 weeks. Yep. Any additional?
Yeah. So, Lindsay, hi. So as you're talking about the forms, my question is, and I'm thinking about Christina at the other end there, where we both represent existing policy groups, and especially, I mean, both resonated with me, but the Colorado Early Childhood Screening and Referral Policy Group, as you know, we're working on a big data project as far as a shared data platform. So would you, I'm thinking that comes better from the policy group versus me, you know, co-chair. Is there going to be a way to demonstrate in those forms that this is coming through work from existing groups? And I'm thinking about Raise Colorado and others that are working on similar efforts.
Yeah, so as you upload that information, we do ask that you identify the organizations that sponsor that work and then provide a point of contact so that either folks in our office or our vendor can then reach out and have conversations if they need to about that work. But yeah, I'm guessing, you know, you wear many hats, so you might be doing some multiple submissions, but we really just want anything and everything that's out there right now.
One related question to that. I'm wondering about the sort of the level of the plan. I'm assuming that you're wanting something that's a more systemic look as opposed to this is an individual program's plan. Is that assumption correct?
So we're doing some looks at programs that have maybe a regional reach even, or maybe are not fully statewide. So at an office level, we of course have strategic plans for specific programs. So we'll be collecting those and looking at them. You know, we do have to report on related efforts happening at a local level. So we do have some county partners who have done planning. So we would love to welcome those plans to be forwarded up. I mean, right now we're really just kind of collecting everything. And then once we have a vendor on board who can really help us design this process, then we'll be able to distill a little bit better what our parameters may be.
Looking at, is that on? Does it sound like it's on? Okay, great. Activity 4, I know you're in the process of finding vendors, but is there anything happening or any clarity on the process for convening the work groups in that area for the competencies, the credential, the qualifications, those pieces, and how folks can get connected with those?
Very timely. So the process management vendor RFP was just released. So they'll actually design the process for selecting participants and how those work groups will function. So the RFP is on our website. So if you want to take a look, that'll give you a little more information on what that may look like. But we will be relying on the vendor to help make those determinations. We're not coming in with work groups currently designed. All right. Well, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Christina. If you don't have my contact information, she can send that out as well. Again, just thank you all for being at the table and being really open and sharing information. We definitely take this back, and we are just so excited to get running in May.
So thank you, Lindsay. And I think anyone who's ever worked on any type of major grant knows that flexibility is always key. And so thank you for all that you and Heather are doing to lead this, because we know that it means that the landscape changes pretty frequently, but it's great to have that consistency of your support and leadership there. Next, we have an update on the early learning and development guidelines, and Carrie Gamarov is going to lead us through
at this update.
We're trying to use as much technology as absolutely possible at this meeting.
All right. Okay, so this is one of the activities that is supporting the maximizing parent choice and knowledge. And so what we wanted to do right now, we're just sort of kicking this off and just give you all an update of this particular work and what it's going to look like, and give you a little bit more information at a pretty high level. So next, like I want to do it on mine. All right, so the guidelines were last updated in and the purpose of that update, as you see here on the screen, was really to provide a unifying set of guidelines across multiple settings for multiple audiences. So at that point in time in 2011, it was one of the first, Colorado was one of the first states to kind of take that ambitious direction of having something that would be for multiple audiences, and which we found as we went through was very challenging to try to find, develop a product or a resource that would really meet the needs of everyone, hence all of the other dissemination efforts around it. It was also intended to provide a cornerstone to drive other quality improvement initiatives in early childhood, so professional development, assessment, instruction, and intervention, and certainly they've been embedded and integrated in many of those things, as I think probably many of you are aware of. We'll go on. So 2011, so the current guidelines, they were aligned with the multiple state documents. So we went through a pretty extensive alignment process to develop them. They're divided into 3 age groups I'll show next, but one of the core things that was an anchor for the guidelines, the development of the guidelines, was the Head Start standards, and as primarily for the pre-K age group. One of the new things, or not new things, Colorado was one of several states, a handful of states that were doing this vertical alignment birth through age 8 at the time. Includes all early learning domains, inclusive of all children, and then it would also be informed by research and policies and at the national and state level. So we'll go on to the next guy here. I think it's yes. So it's organized into these three layers: birth through 3 years, 3 to 5 years, and then kindergarten to 3rd. When we did this, we broke up into smaller work groups with members that had particular expertise in these areas, and it took us, so that's, I think initially there was the lofty goal, I think it was like 6 months or something to do this, and then it turned into a year. I was joking with Christina and Lindsay on the phone. I said, when we started this, I got pregnant with my first child. I had my first child before the guidelines were done, and then when we did the alignment, I had another one. So now I have 3 now that represent, I think, all 3 age groups here, except for infants, which my husband would probably kill me if we did that. So I eat, sleep, and breathe the guidelines in my daily life. So it took a year to get through this process. The birth through 3, we really spent a lot of time on making sure that we got that right. I see some nods. Heather was deeply involved in a lot of these conversations at that time. We had some national experts as well that reviewed the guidelines and provided feedback, and we incorporated that feedback, so both at the state level too. So there's a lot of layers of review and input that were provided to these. So I will also say that the birth to 3 was also heavily informed by California's birth to 3 infant and toddler guidelines. California had just gone through a similar, very rigorous process to develop their infant and toddler standards, and they spent, I think, a year on just that part, really going through the research. And so we thought that that was also really good foundational work to use to inform what we ended up creating for Birth to 3. So all to say, I tell you all of this because they're really good. They're based in research already, but we all know that research changes quickly in early childhood. And so there have been some updates and some things we want, and some changes at the national level in terms of the Head Start standards that we want to really incorporate and make sure are reflected within the next this update here. So we'll go on. So the update, like I said, it's really to align with maximizing parental choice and knowledge. It falls under that activity. And again, it's to just really bring them up to speed a little bit with some advancements in research and other national policies and standards. So we want to keep in mind, just as I think you've heard with everything related to this grant, it's, we're not trying to do something new. It's about taking what's there and updating it, and so there's going to just be some small tweaks. So it shouldn't be, we're not trying to do a big overhaul of the guidelines by any means. So we'll go on. There will be a lot of stakeholders involved, so lots of opportunities for you to provide input. And so there's 3 main tasks to this work: some stakeholder engagement. I'll tell you what stakeholders are, and then the task, obviously, of updating the content. And then there's also a task for developing content for parents and caregivers around experience materials. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. And all of this, I should say, is supposed to be done by the end of June. But I get to start as opposed to everybody else that has to wait till May. So, I have a head start. So we have small group advisory that we have recently secured and confirmed membership of, and the small group represents about 12 people. Some people in this room, but most not, that represent subject matter expertise. So we have physical health and development, mental health, early intervention. We have private child care. We have public pre-K. We have, trying to think who else is on there, higher ed. There's a pediatrician. So we wanted to get a nice variety of people on the small group advice. Yeah, I remember that too. So we want to make sure we have all the right groups and expertise represented. So we make sure that it is reflective of all the best practices and research that has evolved since 2011. And then we'll meet with them over the course of 2 to 4 meetings between now and when they're completed, and they're going to be just providing, again, their lens, their subject matter lens to inform the updates. Of course, members of this group, the Program Quality and Alignment Subcommittee, will be asked at various points in time to provide feedback on the alignment and updates to the what we're suggesting to be included as updates. So that'll happen another time or two between now and June, although we don't have too many meetings between now and June. And then the Early Childhood Leadership Commission will kind of have the final endorsement in June at the June 27th meeting, which will be on us so fast. So lots of layers of review and input to these. But again, it's an update, just an update. So this is not an overhaul. We're just going to make some tweaks and incorporate some recent advancements. So we don't want anybody to think that, oh my gosh, we're going to have to change everything that we've been aligning to the guidelines. That's definitely not the case. Go ahead. So just really quickly, some more what will be updated in particular. I think I already mentioned. So in 2015, the Head Start Early Learning and Outcomes Framework, the ELOF, was updated, and there was actually a gap analysis that I was able to do with a guideline and the ELOF, looking at where there were differences and so we already are kind of starting off ahead, so which is good. We have a good place to start in terms of thinking about what we want to update. And we also will be looking at the updated Colorado Department of Education academic standards. So we do have members, of course, from CDE on our small group advisory to make sure that we're still current with those updated standards. And then also incorporating there's definitely been quite a bit of development in social emotional fields and physical health and development, and then a lot of information around transition. So we want to make sure that it's really reflective of some of that recent research. So we'll go on. And then lastly, we'll just be developing some content that'll be parent focused. So that really provide more information around the parent experience at particular developmental stages and transitions. So again, aligning with current best practices and research, being accessible, something the content will need to be able to be put into an accessible delivery system. So while this project will not be actually creating, any of the communication or materials or anything like that, this content will be used to inform what might be developed by a communication vendor down the road here. So there's an example up here that you can go to the state has parent guide. Just if you're thinking like, what does that mean, parent focused content, and what do you mean by naming parent experiences? I was looking at that the other day, and so I have a 6'3" and a 1-year-old, but I was looking at what does it say for 3-year-olds? It's really challenging at the moment. And they're like, watch what you say because they repeat everything. Yes, they do. And so it's nice they name the parent experiences and like, what you may be feeling this or you may be feeling that. Like, yes, I am. I'm glad to know that it's normal. It's not just me. So we're going to be working on developing some of that content to inform resources that we hope will be really accessible and support parents through their children's development and some of those really tough transitions that they go through. All right, go ahead. So that's it. Yes, any questions, or you can certainly contact me or contact me through Christina too, or ask Christina. Go ahead, Chairman.
Hi, thanks. There were plans I saw to kind of have a small group advisory body looking at the content experts for the other pieces of the guidelines. I'm wondering if there's plans to do a similar thing around the parent experience piece.
Well, I think the plan was that the small group advisory would be advising on probably all of that, and we were looking at adding some additional, I think, parent stakeholders to the group as well. So I think that those is what we'll probably make sure we do as well. Yes, and thank you for reminding me. And of course, we recognize that there's a vast diversity in terms of the groups that are represented here, and so we also hope that you all would be weighing in on those and providing your feedback too. So yeah, thanks for reminding me, Christina.
Sorry, one final question. I'm just wondering, because it just occurred to me, I mean, obviously with the opportunities around full day K and engaging with kindergarten and alignment between pre-K and K, we did get some feedback with the original guidelines that, there were only a couple pages that really were K through third, and that, while they are aligned with standards, that it just maybe that section, if we could use this as an opportunity to really make it very relevant for kindergarten teachers to really understand how their work aligns and is complemented by all of the early learning development that's happening earlier.
So Emily, are you thinking more so information in there about supporting that transition and alignment, not so much the actual standards themselves? Because I think the reason that, and I think you were probably there in some of those conversations, but I think the reason we didn't, it references the Colorado academic standards once you get to that point because they're quite lengthy, and we were like, well, we don't want to just copy and paste and just
put them in here. So they're a bit shorter. They're more brief. That was a decision I think that was made by the work group at the time. But
Yeah, no, I mean, and I get, yeah, and they have to actually go to the standards, but I think that an opportunity, if you're sending, I mean, I think we got the feedback, if you're sending a kindergarten teacher to look at the LDGs, they're like, oh, okay. So yeah, it's kind of that section, if they were specifically going to that section to really, try to nail down that alignment and importance of those transitions, I think would be great.
So Emily, thank you. That's a really good point. And actually, when the Colorado Academic Standards just went through a revision process last year, there was an extensive look at the preschool through third grade kind of alignment and pulled in the ELDGs. So you'll actually see the I think kindergarten does look different. I'm going to look at somebody from CVE and see if I'm just making that up. But there really has been a much deeper integration of the ELDGs within the actual Colorado academic standards, with the notion of how do we make sure we're not sending, especially kindergarten teachers, to multiple places, because kindergarten teachers' lives are challenging enough, let alone pulling from multiple documents. So there was an intentional integration there, and you'll see that off as well, not just in the academic areas, but within the comprehensive health standards. There's a really heavy focus on social emotional development within the preschool, K-1-2 standards as well, kind of pulling in those ELDGs because it was such a strong document. So I think this is a nice opportunity now for the ELDGs to kind of make that connection back. So yeah. So I think we're ready for our next agenda item, and thank you very much, Carrie. So this is an opportunity for legislative updates, which is kind of a little bit more of an open forum in terms of, maybe bringing forward some of the things that we've heard are happening, and just for some sharing. So I will open up the floor. Are we pressuring someone right now? Okay.
I've been voluntold now. Do you just want like a rundown of the legislation, or because this could take long? Is there specific ones that we want to know about?
I think if there are any that might be specific to this group, like the infant and toddler, the strategic plan could be good for this group. The full day kindergarten, we have a sheet there, so maybe just a couple of the highlights.
So full funding for full day K, I'll start there, is obviously going to be introduced soon. It hasn't been introduced yet. The Colorado Children's Campaign is leading on that effort. If you have any questions, but basically what the bill would do, and then also subsequently there would be money in the long bill, the budget, would be to fully fund full day K by increasing the amount in the school funding formula from 58%, which is what we currently fund kindergartners at, to 100%. And so if you have any questions or need any information, yesterday I believe the website launched, so you can, and I don't know exactly what the web link is, but I think you can just Google Colorado full day K and it'll come up. So that's that one. Does anybody have any questions?
Looks like fulldayk.co.
Thank
it's
you.
on the top of your flyer.
I guess one that this group probably would be interested in is Senate Bill 19-104, which is the elimination of duplicate regulation of school buildings. That is basically to, when there are duplicative regulations that apply to schools, such as the Department of Education, the Department of Human Services, if they're running a child care center or have before and after care or Department of Public Health and Environment. This bill says you would always defer to the Department of Education's regulations, which basically means that the schools don't have to follow the health and safety standards that are in the Department of Human Services regulations. And so this is particularly, of issue when we think about the younger kids that may be in a school building for different types of programs, including pre-K. We know that the health and safety standards for those kids are much different than older kids because of where they are developmentally. We also have a lot of schools around the state that do teen parent programs, so there are infants that are being taken care of in the schools, and so that is this is a bill that we're concerned about. So if you have any questions or if you want to sign on to oppose the bill, you can reach out to Bill Jager at the Colorado Children's Campaign. I was literally just working on my bill tracker, so House Bill 191194 is the Early Childhood Suspension and Expulsion Bill, which many of you probably might remember from a few years ago. So this would be, I think, like the third year that we're attempting to bring forth a bill that would say that pre-K kids through second grade cannot be suspended unless there is a violation of like a serious health and safety issue, like bringing a weapon to school or something of that nature. And it also provides, some additional asks for data collection, because right now there's really not that much data out there that really explains what's happening. And we also provided a definition of suspension that's a little bit more elaborate, that kind of also defines soft suspension. So like asking parents to come pick up their kid every day once they are in trouble or something, and really encouraging the schools to really exhaust their other resources before that, and having the suspension and expulsion kind of be the last resort. And so that bill just recently was introduced in the House, and it is being heard next week on March 14th in House Education, I believe.
Christina, this is Bill. I think I got unmuted.
Go for it.
Oh, great. Thanks. I just wanted to go back to the full day K piece real quick. Just a flag, the website is fulldayk.co, and on there you can find everything that Christina said, a summary of the bill, a fact sheet about the effort, a link to join the coalition, a link to share your story, newsletter and social media content. I think now is the time to start spreading the word and sort of raising the noise about the importance of this issue as the process starts moving at the legislature towards the budget. So I just wanted to chime in and make sure that was on folks' radar. And yeah, so thanks, Christina.
Great. I didn't know you were on the phone, so thank you. Okay. The House Bill 191005 is the income tax credit for early childhood educators. So this would provide a tax credit as of right now to providers that are credentialed within a level 2 in the Colorado Shines or higher provider type. So, and it would be available to centers and family child care providers too. And then we're in the process right now of thinking through if we need to decrease the fiscal note, what are different ways and strategies that we could do so without discouraging folks from becoming a provider and moving their way up the credential ladder, or asking providers to move up the Colorado Shines ladder as well. We are hopeful that we can also, try to get it passed in appropriations with the current fiscal note, but there's a lot of competing budget asks this year. So we're just preparing for possible needing to cut it down. If there's anybody who is interested in learning more about that, you can reach out to me or to Bill Jager. Yesterday, the Family Medical Leave Insurance Program was introduced, Senate Bill 19188. And so the 9 to 5 Colorado and Family Coalition are leading that effort. It was introduced in the Senate and assigned to Business, Labor, and Technology. And Senate Bill 1963 is the Infant and Family Child Care Action Plan bill that Christina mentioned earlier. So that bill would require the Department of Human Services to work with the Early Childhood Leadership Commission and other stakeholders to look into the reasons why family child care homes are decreasing in our state and have been decreasing in our state for the past decade. We have a lot of data out of the Department of Human Services that really shows the decline, and that's been really helpful. But we know from engaging with stakeholders, particularly family child care home providers, that there are a lot of competing issues for why it's difficult to open and maintain a family child care home, including things like zoning laws, land use laws, International Building Code, the ability to take CCAP kids or not, and entries into the Colorado Shines or not. So there's just a lot that's there that we really want to unpack more, so that then there can be a plan created for how to rectify the situation, particularly given that because of the loss of family child care homes, we've lost so much infant care. And so we now are really struggling in the infant slots across the state. So it's kind of similar to the teacher shortage bill that passed a few years ago, where they were like, let's explore this and then come up with a plan. So that has already passed the Senate and is in the House and is scheduled to be heard in House Public Health Care and Human Services Committee on March 13th.
If I can add just a note about that, when we think about PDG and our work around a needs assessment and looking at what does care look like, this is a huge component, and we think the timing is really good that we'll be able to sort of do these things together and take the learnings from the needs assessment work with PDG, take this ability to really deep dive on family and infant and toddler care, family homes and such, and see what we can pull into that and see how it can inform our strategic plan. So I just wanted to share not a duplicative effort there, but something really will dovetail nicely together. And having the Early Childhood Leadership Commission named in that legislation, we would come to our program quality and alignment group to help us think through what that can look like from our participation. So no, you'll be hearing, as long as that legislation passes, there'll be much more to come with this group.
Thank you. I think there's two more that I'd like to point out. House Bill 19-1052 is the Early Childhood Development Special District bill. This was also introduced last year, but died just due to political issues at the end of session when everything was going. And so we were able to bring it back this year. It would basically allow for a local area to come together and decide to create a special district for early childhood development specifically. Currently, we have special districts for things like ambulance services, fire services, parks and recreation, those types of things. And so we would be adding early childhood development programs to that list of options. But basically, it wouldn't create any special districts. That would just provide local areas to decide if they want to. And this bill is kind of came about because there are some mountain communities that are really looking into utilizing this to help support the folks who work in the mountain resort areas, but may live further away and don't have access to childcare, because obviously that is the worker support of childcare is really important to being able to continue to run the resort areas. And then the last one is House Bill 191122, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment Maternal Mortality Review Committee. This would codify in statute a maternal mortality review committee, which has been shown in many different states to be the start of really learning the reasons why behind our increasing maternal mortality rates, and then being able to actually start implementing policies that help decrease it. And so codifying it in statute would provide the committee with some resources in areas of the state to come and participate better. It would also give them some legal protection that they couldn't be subpoenaed in cases that are still being looked at. And so we could actually get more up-to-date data, because currently they have to wait 3 years to start looking at data so that they don't put themselves at risk of being subpoenaed. So it would really help, because right now our data, I think the most recent data we have that has been looked at is 2014. So that is waiting in appropriations right now, because it'll start moving again once the budget process happens, which will be the weeks of March 25th and April 1st. And the only other thing I'll say is March 19th is our 8th annual Speak Up for Kids Day. Many of you may have participated in the past or are going to be an advocacy coach this year. So we're really excited for that. And we will all be up at the Capitol that day talking about kids. So we're excited.
Thank you very much. So we're moving on to updates from our working group. So we have the Youth Child Wellness Council, and so Christina, is there someone delivering that? I think we're looking to see if Anne can provide this update for us, and we believe she is
Hi, this
online.
is Anne. Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Can
thank
you hear
you.
me? Great.
Yes.
We had a Young Child Wellness Council meeting the end of February. What we're looking at now is closing out project launch. So we have 2 more Young Child Wellness Council meetings, and we're very focused on taking the passion and the motivation that some of our members have for the work in early childhood and how we can plug them into initiatives once the council is no longer functioning, once the funding ends in September. So that's been a big focus. If there's folks on the phone that are looking for parent representatives, we have several family members who have been on the council for 4+ years, and they've really increased their knowledge and skills around early childhood, especially around social emotional issues. They're very strong in sort of family engagement and family leadership. So it's a good pool of family members to draw off for much of the work that's being done here. We also have a panel of family members from the Young Child Wellness Council who will be presenting at the Home Visiting Conference, Parent Possible Home Visiting Conference in April, and their topic is family engagement and family leadership. They've done a similar presentation before at the Strengthening Families Conference, got a lot of positive feedback. There are many folks, organizations, and programs who are interested in best practice around family engagement and recruitment. So for those of you who can attend that conference or at least that panel presentation, that would probably be a good use of your time.
And we're losing you just a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Sounding a little muffled.
Okay. Edith?
Anne, are you finished or just trying to get a better connection?
Let me see what I can do.
Okay, we'll hold on. No.
Is this any better?
Yes.
I apologize. I'll try and do it more quickly. Basically, we have 2 more meetings of the Young Child Wellness Council for project launch before our funding ends. So the last 2 meetings are very much focused on how we can capture and retain the passion and motivation of our current Young Child Wellness Council family members and other members, professional members, to carry on the work. They've spent the last 4.5 years really increasing their knowledge and skills around early childhood development, especially focused on social emotional development, reducing stigma around mental health conversations, and family leadership and engagement. So those are 2 sort of highlights of the work that's been going on at the State Council for the past 4 years. So if there are folks on this phone who are interested in recruiting, retaining family members for any of the work that you're doing, we have a pool of family members who really have the skills and knowledge and advocacy to work on some of these topics that we've been talking about on the phone. And we also have a panel of family members who will be presenting at the upcoming Parent Possible Home Visiting Conference on family engagement and recruitment. So if there's anyone on the phone who can attend that panel presentation, it's really good information. Those are the top highlights from the last meeting.
Appreciate that very much, Anne. We'll have an update from the Early Childhood Professional Development Advisory and Jennifer O'Brien.
Hi, everybody. So as you may or may not know, I chair the ECPD Advisory along with Heather Craiglow, Rebecca Cantor, and Pamela Harris. And, you know, we've been busy over the past few months. 2 of the areas where the work has really been moving and shaking is in the Workforce Development Goal Group of the 2020 Plan and the Early Childhood Leadership Commission Data Subcommittee. So the Workforce Development Goal Group has really been the group that's partnering with the Colorado Workforce Development Council effort around creating an education career pathway in Colorado. And so that group started meeting, early fall of last year and has been regularly meeting, all with the goal of launching a website on careersincolorado.org related to the education sector. And so the final product will basically be a career pathways map that has overview and facts about top jobs. It has, you know, it'll be kind of a clickable, interactive sort of thing where you can get information on training, formal education, credentials related to each of the top jobs. You will be able to get both Colorado and regionally specific data about salary, job outlook, that sort of thing. And then, you know, just different sorts of resources, you know, for people coming into the field, for people already in the field but looking to kind of make a lane change, that sort of thing. And so a lot of this work has been taking place in small groups at this point, but Colorado Workforce Development Council staff are getting ready to send out a survey to get broad stakeholder input on the work products up to this point, so you will want to look out for that. If you want to get plugged into that work, the ECPD Advisory is really the place to do that. And I mean, I think the work of the 2020 plan in general definitely, if you'd like to be included in that work, send me an email or any one of my co-chairs an email, and we'll make sure we get you on that group. And then the second place where the action has been happening is the Data Subcommittee, the Early Childhood Leadership Commission Data Subcommittee. So the data goal group of the 2020 plan merged with the ECLC Data Subcommittee and has recently contracted with Heather Matthews to do a little bit of work, and that work has really been about defining outcomes for the 3 priority areas. I know many of you are familiar with the three priority areas. And so when those outcomes were defined, really looking at indicators connected to those outcomes to measure progress. And so as far as the priority area related to workforce development, we came up with 3 indicators, 2 that have to do with compensation, 1 that has to do with kind of maintaining / building a diverse workforce. And right now, Heather Matthews is gathering data related to those indicators, and we are expecting a report, a draft of the report out in late March, right? Anything to add to that, Christina? Okay, and the way to plug into that work is through Christina and Amanda, if you're interested. It's fun. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Christina is going to update us on the framework working group.
Yes. So hopefully all of you are familiar with the Early Childhood Colorado Framework, the brochure that has the domains and the outcomes that we're all working toward as a state to get us to that point where all children are valued, healthy, and thriving. The working group over the past probably 2 years plus now has been working on creating a website that sort of brings that framework to life and allows organizations to go in and to register and to share how the work that you're doing in your organizations is helping to support and helping to advance those outcomes within the framework. It's been really well received. It was a really long process, but I think the website turned out well. And we are starting to use that as a tool to share with policymakers and to share with the governor's office and administration to say, you know, this is a resource of understanding, and you can filter and sort, there we go, by county, by domain, by even those down to those outcomes in the framework to see what the system looks like in your community. So I would encourage everyone to check it out. It's earlychildhoodframework.org. So it's the same site that you've been using to get those resources before. Make sure that you're registered on there, that your organization is on there. You have to register. Then you'll get an email back that confirms that you are a program and you are in Colorado. So you'll get a confirmation back. And then go in and add your programs and share what you do. And an added bonus, we're going to do a few drawings for some $100 gift cards at our next program quality and alignment meeting. So super excited that we'll be doing the drawing on our webinar on April 12th, and we'll be drawing for 3 $100 gift cards for folks who have gone in and added programs to their profile. So definitely encourage you to do that. We'll share some information after the meeting. And if you can help share it with your networks and in your communities, that would be great. But make sure that you're on there so that you're registered for that.
Thank you very much. Well, I just want to draw everyone's attention to take a look at your agenda. Notice what time it says that we need to be on public comment. Everybody, please note what time it is. This is really unprecedented. So thanks everybody for kind of keeping us on track today. So we always have time during our meeting agenda for public comment, especially because this is considered a kind of a state meeting, and we always want to make sure that there's opportunity for non-members to have a voice during our meeting time. So we don't have a formal sign-up sheet for that, I don't believe.
I think there was a check on it, but I didn't.
Okay, so, but we'll just say that if you do have something that you would like to to bring forward, now is the time. Christine is checking the list. Okay. Is there anybody participating remotely? Yeah. This can also be a time for any updates or announcements. Heather.
Anne mentioned the Parent Possible conference, and we did, for the first time, we opened up the registration to anyone. So if you're interested in coming to the Parent Possible Home Visiting Conference, it's April 16th and 17th at the Westin in Westminster, and the registration is on our website, which is parentpossible.org.
Okay. Well, great. Well, I think we are ready to move on to next steps. So we have our next meeting on April 12th, 9 to 11. This will be a webinar-only meeting. And again, just as a reminder, for the Program Quality and Alignment Committee, we have kind of determined that every other one of our meetings during the time of the preschool development grant will be take place kind of virtually, and will be primarily focused on the grant activities. So that next meeting is there. You'll also see the link for attendance. The great team at CDHS makes sure that all of that information comes out to us in plenty of time. So thank them for their great work on that. Christina, is there anything that we need to be considering in terms of agenda topics for future meetings?
I guess I would just ask if anyone has anything in terms of, thank you, topics that people would like to hear more about. Next time we'll probably focus pretty heavily on PDG, but if there are other things that we should be making room for, or that you feel like would be really important for people to know about as we're learning more and diving deeper into PDG and we get vendors on and such, would love to hear that either now, or you can always email me about that. I would say, as you have questions or things that came up for you during the meeting, please do make sure that you're writing those on those sticky notes and throw those on the chart by the door. Folks online, just make sure to submit those through the question box or send those to us afterwards. But I think that's it.
Great. Well, I will tap my imaginary gavel and have us adjourn. Oh, there's a real, I have chimes, so we are officially adjourned. Thanks, everybody.